Hey everybody, welcome back to Discover Springford. I'm standing in front of Springford Area High School, as you can see by the Ram statue, and today I'm sitting down with Tom DiBello. He's the past president and vice president of the Springford Area School Board. I'm Geoffrey Desiato, a professional actor, part-time realtor, and transplant to the Springford area, and I'm on a mission to find the best that Springford has to offer. I'll be interviewing local business owners, civil servants, and other prominent members of the community to find out what makes Springford a great place to live, work, eat, and explore. I invite you to join me on my journey as I discover Springford. Tom, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, technically I came in to talk to you, but I appreciate you making time. We are actually sitting in the brand new fitness center at the high school, and I got a sneak peek before it's officially open to the public, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to be here. So why don't we start back at the beginning? You can go back as far as you care to in your life, and let people know a little bit of your personal history in terms of where you grew up, where you went to school, and things like that.
Okay, just so everybody knows, we're taping this.
Yes, right.
But next year, when this probably in 2020, I'll be moving into the board vice president role.
Yeah.
I've been the board president on the school board for over the years. I've been on the board 10 years, so I think it's 5 or 6 times I've been the board president as well as the vice president over the years. Just for clarification,
Yeah, no,
people sit there and say,
I don't want to hurt anybody's
feelings.
He's
you're not the board president when it's my air.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really excited to be here, and you know, it's a great question to start with because you know I'm a transplant.
Yeah,
most of the Springford School District.
Yeah.
I grew up in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Interesting, my mom was a school teacher, my dad was a police officer, so that was a lot of fun growing up.
Right. Everybody, you weren't able to get away with very much.
No.
Town.
Everybody knew, and Hazleton was a tight-knit, small town. I don't remember what the population was at the time, maybe 15, 16,000 people.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, either my mom taught them or my dad arrested them. That's what it seemed like, you know.
Yeah, for anybody who wasn't listening to your mom in school about getting good grades, keeping your nose clean, they ran into DiBello eventually.
Yeah. But so I moved down to this area in '93. I graduated from college. I did some things in my early 20s. I got a degree in computer science.
Okay.
And that area wasn't very fruitful for technology type jobs. So I eventually moved to this area back in '93. Worked with a company, and that's where I met my wife.
Okay.
And we got married in I got to remember this so I get in trouble. We got married in '97.
Okay, good.
And we moved to Limerick in '98.
Okay.
You know, so and because of me growing up, my dad ran the POW League for years up in Hazleton. So I was always community was always part of us, you know, as a family. And it was interesting because many people probably don't know this, but they're going to build a gas power plant in Limerick next to the nuclear power plant.
Oh, okay.
That was my entry into all this craziness that we know as politics.
Oh, really?
So there's a group of us, we created this CCLF, Concerned Citizens for Limerick's Future, and we went on to fight this power plant from being built.
Okay.
And I eventually ran for supervisor, and we won. And the good news is that we stopped that power plant.
Yeah.
It was going to be a gas generator, or burning natural gas to produce electricity.
Okay.
We were able to stop that
power
plant. So I was a supervisor for a few years. I ended up leaving that position. My dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Oh, okay.
And there was always politics involved, but I don't want to get into all that. But,
Sure.
But eventually, I mean, I did something that I normally don't do, but I was driving my dad, helping my mom. I was living down here, running to Hazleton, getting my dad for treatment in New Jersey.
Sure.
So it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And we were able to keep him, you know, for a little longer than anticipated, which we were very happy about. But, you know, unfortunately, it came to an end, and you know, we missed him. And so I kind of went into hiatus a little bit.
Okay.
But I was always involved in the back, you know, behind the scenes.
Sure.
I helped get a new board elected in Limerick to the supervisors. I actually became the president. At one time, we created this what was it called? Organization for Economic Development.
Okay.
So we're trying to promote And at the time, the outlets were being built.
Okay.
Actually, when I was on the board of supervisors, I was part of approving those plans.
Yeah.
So then I became the president of that organization, and the goal was just to really help build out areas like the outlets, and so that was built up, right? So then I worked with the outlet organization, and we helped them plan a huge job fair. Oh, wow. And the goal was they needed to hire like 400 or 500 people.
Oh, really? Yeah, with all the new businesses.
Yeah. So I was and little by little I started to like get more involved again.
Yeah.
And so back in 2000 and when I get the years right, 2008, 2009. I was always involved with the youth sports as well. I helped coach baseball. I was a coach for Springford Youth Baseball. Okay. I helped run the youth basketball, Springford Youth Basketball with Bill Keim and Chris Gannon. Names you probably don't familiar with, but they moved on to, they eventually retired, but so I helped them run that organization for years, and I was a commissioner and a coach, and so I was kind of always, and then in 2008, I got together with a couple guys, and we created Springford Youth Football. Oh, okay. Which grew into, we have roughly about 400 to 450 kids a year in our Springford youth football, flag football, and cheerleading. Yeah. But then we created this organization called ICFL, Inter-County Football League. And now within that, we're actually beyond the county because we have like not Chester Valley, Great Valley is involved, and so we got O&J Roberts. So we got not school districts. It's not school district related, but everything's defined by the school district, right? And they became part of it. So we have like 12, I think it's 12 organizations that are involved in this youth football. Oh, wow! And I'm proud that. There's probably somewhere, I don't know the exact number, but we're somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 kids that participate in this. I mean, it's just, and this all started because a couple of us were at the Springford basketball beef and beer. Yeah. And a couple guys heard that I was trying to start a youth football league a few years earlier. And they came over to me and said, hey, we're kind of tossing some ideas around. This was March of 2008. In August of 2008, we were up and running.
That's incredible when you get some people that are actually passionate about something that things can actually move pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so the funny thing is that while all that was going on, I was home watching the school board meetings on TV. Yeah. And this was, again, in 2008, because I didn't have enough on my plate to do. Yeah, right. And I was sitting there, and now I have over the years, like I said, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I went on to get my master's degree, in information systems. Sure. So so I have a pretty educated background as well. I've worked for large corporations. I've worked for small corporations. A very diverse background. I've worked with companies around the world. I've spoke at conferences all throughout the United States. I've spoke at conferences in Paris and all that. So I've been, but I'm watching a school board meeting, and interesting, the board at the time was sitting there, and they were talking about where to place a bathroom at the which you can see out over here, the baseball field, and they were talking about where to place this bathroom. And this went on for over a half an hour. And I'm watching this on TV, and I'm going, oh my God. I mean, seriously, that's like max 10-minute conversation. Yeah, right. And I said to myself, it's time, I'm gonna run for school board. I just decided at that point.
So it was all over a bathroom. You decided to throw your life away, essentially.
Yeah,
to public service. No, right. I'm just kidding.
No, but it was, so I decided that I was going to run, and I've helped run campaigns, local campaigns, all that, from 2000 all the way through. Now I'm just going to run my own local campaign, and I ran for school board. And the great news is that I won. Yeah. And that was a big change to the board because there was 5 new board members that came in. Oh, really? In 2009.
Wow. And how many are on the school board?
9.
9. Oh, okay. Wow. So it's the majority shift.
So it was a big majority shift, and it was interesting. But I came in with a diverse group of people. Yeah. And the one thing that I'm proud about, and you know, over the years I've been on the board prior to be, you know, I don't want to talk about previous boards. Sure. There's no point, right? But well, it may come up in conversation a little bit. But we and Joe Cerisi ran in that year. He was on the board. He was on for 4 years, I believe it was. Then he ran again and lost, and then he ran back in 2009 again. Yeah. So we all came on together, and it was Republicans and there were Democrats. Yeah. And we all had, at that time, it was the most educated board that Springford ever seen. Everyone, I don't want to say except, it wasn't, you know, 8 out of 9 people had at least a master's degree on the board. We had an attorney, we had Dr. Dresser was a PhD in physics. He taught at Penn State for 30 years. So it was an extremely educated board. Yeah. I'm not putting anything down. I mean, there were wonderful people that have all kind of backgrounds, you know, in trades or whatever it may be. I'm just, but from an educational standpoint, it was the most educated board. And we were driven to, because believe it or not, at the time, Springford wasn't considered one of the top districts in the state. And knowing our demographics, knowing that we have these huge pharmaceutical companies and all this technology companies and everything that's surrounding Springford or within Springford, something's not right. Yeah. There was also roughly a $280 million debt that the district had. Yeah. So it was crazy. Yeah. So we came onto the board and politics stopped at the door. We were driven. We were driven to work as a team. We didn't care Republican, we didn't care Democrat, didn't matter. We never brought that to the table. And that decision, I truly believe, and that's the same decision that we've held for 10 years, I truly believe that is why Springford is what it is today. Because there wasn't games, there wasn't politics, there wasn't partisan, there was none of that nonsense. Right. I mean, we all see what goes on in Washington. Right. I'm not taking a political position, that's right. But we all see what goes on, and it's like, we weren't doing that here. Right. And so there's Montgomery County IU, intermediate unit, and it's their intermediate units service school districts within the county. And they provide all kinds of services for special needs, special education, all kinds of services. That's what they do. I sat on that board as representing Springford, and listening to other school districts around Montgomery County, when I hear what goes on there and listening to how they get into this partisan decision making, 5-4, you know, it's just this nonsense. And you know, you voted yes because you're a Republican. I'm voting no because you know I'm there. And you're sitting going, oh my God, that's crazy. And then and even at the IU at the time, there was this trickling of politics. I eventually got onto the executive board at the IU and became president of the Montgomery County IU board. And that was the same thing, the same trend that I carried forward. Was like, I don't care what your party affiliation is. I don't care what your political positions are. We're here for kids. Right. We're here to provide a service to the community. Yep. And so that's why Springford is what we are today. It's a great district. Yeah. I mean, we went from, you know, the ratings are kind of screwy now because the state keeps changing. But a few years ago, the last real ratings that there was within school districts, we were 9th in the state. That's incredible. So we went from being over 100 to, you know, one of the top 10 in the state. It was a lot of hard work. Yeah, that's great. Like I said, biggest challenge was, two things was the biggest challenge. One was the first budget I sat through is that they were spending, their curriculum budget was $50,000. And I'm going, and at the time our total budget was like $125 million. Yeah. I'm going 50, I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a minute. You know, this isn't right. Yeah. You know, so it was actually disappointing to see how the budgeting process was going on, understanding the debt that the district took on. I mean, you know, and again, I'm not going to challenge past decisions because you can't change it. There was a lot of growth. There were schools that were built. One could argue the way schools were built in Springford, was it the right way? Was it the right decision? You could argue that all day long. Yeah. It doesn't matter. We're beyond that. Yeah. but we had a $280 million debt. Taxes were probably averaging about 5 to 6% a year increase.
Wow. Yeah.
So there was just a lot of breakdown.
Yeah.
So we as a board took two big challenges on. One was to really focus on the whole budgeting process and understanding that, because at the time, 2009, 2010, 11,
right, coming out of the recession.
We're coming out of the recession, but at that point, a lot of districts were going through financial problems.
Yeah, I would imagine.
There was a lot of issues, and there's still many school districts in the state of Pennsylvania that are financially unstable.
Yeah.
So we said, well, this is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And the other thing was to say, we're going to raise the bar of education here at Springford.
Yeah.
That became our theme, right?
Yeah.
Raise the bar of education. So at the time, Joe Cerisi and myself were board leadership. And he was one party, I was the other party. Didn't matter. It was funny because people would look at us and say, "Wait a minute, this isn't. What are you guys doing?"
Yeah, right.
And we kept going back to raising the bar of education. And we started. The first thing was to say, how are we going to redirect more money back into curriculum? How are we going to bring our curriculum standards to, not being like everyone else, but how are we going to start being better or surpassing everyone else. So we start doing things. I think the first year we were able to redirect money, and I think we got up to $500,000 or something like that in curriculum.
Wow. That's incredible. Right?
But in 2011, within all that, we inherited a $12 million deficit.
Oh, okay.
It was like 11.8 million.
Yeah.
We made some really, really tough decisions, and even though I have a computer science background, I ran I worked in corporate America. I was running, 10, 15, $20 million projects. So budgeting and all this financial stuff, I really got my arms around it, and I took that on as I'm going to take on finance, and work from finance committee. And so we said, okay, we're going to have to eliminate this deficit. Yeah. And we're going to have to make some really tough decisions, and people aren't going to be happy. But it was a make or break for the school district. Yeah. So we had to cut staff. That was the hardest thing because I hate doing that. I did that in corporate America for years. Yeah. We had to change our way of thinking as far as services. We brought in an outside services to do our facilities cleaning at second and third shift. Yeah. So there was a lot of things that we wiped away the deficits. We also had like a 4.3% tax increase. Wow. But it started us on the path. Yeah. It started us on the path to where we are today. People were not happy. Yeah. As you can imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine.
They weren't happy. But there were decisions that had to be made. Yeah. So we started to slowly turn the direction of the school district. Funny thing, when I was moving to Limerick, people were all like saying, "Oh, you're going to Springford? You're going to live in Springford?" And because Methacton at the time was the school district. Everybody was Methacton. And I'm sure they're a great school district, but there's, Springford. And I'm like, but we started to shift. Yeah. And over the years, we start making investments we did the hybrid learning at Spring City. Spring City was the first hybrid learning entire school in the entire country. That's incredible. Yeah. So we had school districts from around the country contacting us and asking us, what do we do? How do we do it? How do we financially support it? How do we shift the teachers? How do we do the training? I mean, they were asking, and were very successful there. We're thrilled with where Spring City was at and where they are today from a performance standpoint. And the hybrid learning, real quick, is just a different way of teaching. There's computers in the classroom, but instead of the teacher teaching, say there's 20 kids in the classroom, or let's say 21 to make it easy, because you'll understand what I mean in a second. So let's say 21 kids in the classroom. Well, the way the hybrid learning works is that the kids come in, the teacher does a general lecture for maybe 10, 15 minutes, the entire class.
Okay.
Right? Then what the teacher does is 7 kids stay with the teacher, 7 kids go to personalized learning, and 7 kids go to group learning.
Okay.
And so then the teacher then could focus on those 7 kids and help, and you have the gamut of some kids, got to grasp the concept real quick, and some kids need a little bit more, right? So the teacher's allowed to focus on those 7 kids. 7 kids over here doing individual learning, individualized learning, and then you got 7 kids working as a group.
Yeah.
And after 10, 15 minutes or whatever it may be, the teacher will switch.
Oh, okay.
So then the 7 kids that were with the teacher go to the individual learning, the kids with individual learning will go to the group learning, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And it's a great concept, and we then, a couple years after Spring City, we did that at Royersford.
Oh, okay.
And then we took a lot of the concepts from Spring City and Royersford, and we started introducing them throughout the school district.
Yeah.
So that was a national, that's when we started, the first time that SPRINGFORD started to be recognized nationally for what we were doing. I forget what year it was, 12, I want to say, where the 8th grade center won a national blue ribbon.
Oh, wow.
For academic achievement. And usually school wins a national blue ribbon is because they were here and they became here.
Yeah.
And they excelled.
It's like most improved.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I forget how many, each year they do, and I forget, it's a very small number that the school districts will win these award recognition. But while all that was going on, we were starting to shift, like I said, and SPRINGFORD started to, become more and more. Like I said, we invested into curriculum. There's stuff over the years. We added more AP courses. When we started, there was 11. We're up to like 24, 25 AP classes now. Our kids are, I forget, 750 or so kids are taking AP classes a year or more. The big initiative that beyond that, and there's so many things over the years, we could talk for hours. But one of the other, and then we'll get to the fitness and expansion of high school, because this was really exciting too. But one of the other big initiatives was years ago. You probably remember reading in a newspaper where schools were starting to do one-to-one, like they start handing out computers to every kid. Right. And we were like, and then you start to hear stories. The big story was Lower Merion when the computers had the camera on them, and they were able. Right, you remember that they
were looking.
They were able to turn the camera on, and it created a lot of problems.
Imagine.
So, but we didn't at that point. We still didn't buy into this one-to-one, and this was interesting because we as a board would be debating. What do we want to do here? We don't want to be left behind as far as what other school districts are doing, but we don't want to make a huge mistake. Right. And it's funny because Joe and I were always in sync with a lot of things we were doing in SPRINGFORD, but he was like, I want these kids to have computers. And I'm saying, I don't want these kids to have computers. Right. But we created this modernized learning. Okay. It was what we called it. And the whole thing was really about introducing computers into the classroom and making them part of the curriculum. Yeah. That was our goal, and that was our key. That was the key behind all of this. And so we started with a pilot program like 4 years or 5 years ago, and we brought in like different devices, and we gave this device to this group of kids, this device to this group of kids. Sure. And then we started to integrate it into the classrooms a little bit. We learned what was working, what wasn't working, eventually zeroed into the device, that type of computer we want to go with. We start to say, then we start to lay out plans of saying how we're going to align the curriculum with technology, because we didn't want kids to have computers and just go in the classroom and put them on the floor, put them under their desk, surf the internet. Yeah, right.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, right. Yeah. So it was really around how we're going to make this together, curriculum. And one of the big things we did too is like, there's all these school boards have these committees. Right. So there was a curriculum committee and there was a technology committee. And as we were moving in this direction, we said, if we want this to become part of it together and integrated, we merged the two committees. Oh, okay. So over the years we call it sampling size or cohort they call, but we kept adding more and more kids into this, and we started bringing more and more teachers into it. And we had all kind of training for the teachers. There was curriculum development and all this. Spin the clock forward to this year, and we had a presentation at the board meeting. The 9th grade class. Now the goal is that when the kids come into 9th grade, they get a computer, and they have that for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So this is the first year. This is where we're at. I mean, we have kids throughout 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade that have computers. We have computer carts. I mean, there's been a lot that went into this. But this is the first year the 9th grade class are getting computers, and they're going to now have, the entire class will have them to the rest of their high school career. Okay. And next year, the 9th grade class coming in will get computers. And then the next, and it keeps moving up. And eventually, every kid at 9th grade to 12th grade will have a device. Okay. And schools are calling us and they're going, wow, what an amazing way to tackle this. Yeah, right. Because they're like, we bought these computers, and they're like, what do we do with them? Right. So it's a huge success. And that's another piece of what made Springford and why our academic, we're achieving levels that were beyond where Springford has been for years. It's really an amazing program. So that's just another piece of what we did. And then the last thing I want to cover is that when I was talking about the budget, we engineered or reinvented or redefined or whatever you want to call it, our complete business operations in the district. And we left traditional educational business office, and I did this through finance, and I brought in the concept that we're going to run our business operations like corporate America. Right. So we have a CFO, we have a controller, we have an accountant, a senior accountant, we have somebody that's focused on accounts payable, we have somebody that's focused on accounts receivable, somebody's focused on payroll. I actually spoke, we went down to the Pennsylvania School Board Association, has an annual conference every year, and I went and I spoke, I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, I went and spoke, and we went over how we did it, how we changed everything. Yeah. School districts were blown away. Yeah. They're like, we can't believe you guys, and did you think it was a risk? And Bob said, no, come in front of corporate America, you look at it like, education's a business. Right. People argue it's not, but I look at it as it's a business. We're providing a service. We have money that comes in through tax revenues, and we have money that goes out. Plain and simple. Right. Right. And at the end of the day, we're providing a service to educate students. Right. So as part of that whole business operations, we hired a CFO. We put budgeting practices in place where we have now 7 years worth of budgets already done. We have a rolling budget. Why that means something is because we've been able, remember when I talked about our tax increases were between 5 and 6%? Our average tax increase over the last 8 years, I guess you want to say, has been 1.8%. Wow. We've even had a 0% tax increase. And we've paid down over $200 million of that $280 million. Wow. And the best thing out of all of this, we're excelling academically, and we're financially stable. That's great. I know people get upset when every year we roll out, and most years we've had, like I said, we had tax increases as high as a 4.36 or something like that, all the way down to 0. Average 1.8%. It's incredible when you look at surrounding school districts and where they're at. Right. I know people get upset. We don't want to do it. Yeah. It's like I have no, I pay taxes too. Yeah, right. I don't want to do it. Yeah. But it's making Springford, and the end result of all that is Springford School District is one of the fastest selling real estate markets in the entire area. Yeah. Especially Montgomery County. And I have realtors that are friends and all that, and when you see realtor ads now, years ago when I moved to Limerick, you see, Methacton School District, right? Come to here. Now you see, this house is located at, 123, whatever street in the Springford, award-winning school district, in the Springford School District. That's been a transformation in the 10 years. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And which brings us to this,
right, where we're sitting right now.
Where we're sitting right now.
Really
I mean, like I
cool
said, we could talk for, could talk for hours, but what brings us to where we're sitting here. A couple of years ago, I actually started an initiative where I wanted to build a health and wellness center.
Yeah.
Because the job indexes, or whatever you want to call it, were showing that the biggest growth for availability was in the health industry. Okay. Right? And a lot of our kids graduate and go to college for all kind of degrees associated to the health. Yeah. Right? So we start looking at possibility of a health and wellness center, and actually we're looking at building it right next to the baseball stadium. Yeah. Unfortunately, there was a lot of politics.
Yeah, as there always is.
There always is. And then it turned into the $12 million fitness center. Well, actually, it was a $7 million. Then it was a $10 million. Then it was a $12 million fitness center and all that. Created a lot of issues. But we always knew that as the district was growing, and the facility that we had, one of the facilities that we had to accommodate our students, which was the fitness area, was ridiculously small. Yeah. And this high school went through 3 expansions. Yeah. Because of the growth.
Yeah, right.
So the facility could not accommodate the 2,200 plus kids. So we start looking at, and every 5 years we have to do a feasibility study, and that gives us tons and tons of information about the community, how it's growing, what the expectations are, and all that. We knew we had to do something. Within that feasibility study, and within those studies, we also learned that we have a huge group of students that participate in performing arts. Yeah. You know, band, orchestra, chorus, color guard, you know, and even the artistic, you know, where kids are, you know, graphic arts and all that kind of stuff. And,
theater.
Theater is huge, right? When you looked at the facilities that we had, there's no way we could accommodate, and that's the feasibility studies came back and said that, you know, you need to do something because this is core to the high school. Right. You know, majority of your kids throughout the day go through your fitness facilities and go through your performing arts facilities every day. Yeah. Compared to some kids go through the physics lab, some kids go through, you know, the history class. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know, and you see the right. So we started to look at this and we start putting designs together, and we did a high school expansion. The entire expansion, believe it or not, was $10 million. Okay. It wasn't a $10 million fitness center, but the whole thing was geared towards providing facilities that could accommodate, you know, 2,200 students. Right. And so you know, an education, when you're going to take on a building project, it takes a couple of years to go through all the designs, approvals, and everything else. But we built this facility, and unfortunately, it'd be harder for us to get into the performing arts ring because it's, you know, we're here during the day. Yeah, right. Of course, yeah. And it'll be a little bit harder to get in. But so we built this out, and I don't remember the exact square footage. I think they're roughly total. I think it was like 30,000 square feet additional for both facilities. And we also built another hallway to help move the kids around the buildings. Sure. All in all, we're about $12 million in. Wow. We put $3.5 million out of our capital projects, and then I guess we borrowed whatever. No, it's $10 million. Everything all in was $10 million because we put $3.5 million, I think it was, or $3 million out of our capital projects. And $7 million we got a bond for. Oh, nice. Okay. But it didn't change because our annual debt service is roughly $15 million a year. Okay. And the way our annual debt service is going down, we were able to do this and still be part of the annual debt service, so it had zero impact on the budget.
Oh wow, that's great.
You know, so there was no tax increase. Yeah. And the good news, real quick, with the annual debt service is we have a huge drop-off coming in 3 years where our annual debt service is roughly going to go from 15 million down to 9 million. Oh, wow. And then the goal is to take that money and redirect it back into capital projects, because we could do a whole show on about
different capital projects.
Capital projects, and, you know, keeping a school district of, you know, 11 buildings, you know, over 8,000 students, keeping it the levels that it's at. So we built these facilities. We had a ribbon cutting in November. We had over, I want to say at least 300 people came in, and they were blown away with what we've provided.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to take some, you know, but the goal is to create an environment that would accommodate all our students. Any student that has any interest in coming into this, we'll just say in this facility, to exercise in some fashion, there's equipment here for them.
That's great. Yeah.
This wasn't built for the football team. This wasn't built for the baseball, whatever. Yeah. This was built for 2,200 plus kids. And yes, there's racks over there that will mostly be used for the football, for strength conditioning. There's cardio upstairs, all the cardio equipment upstairs, you know, the track team or whatever it may be. There's other equipment that's less intimidating than the racks where you have the free weights and all that, where the kids could come, that it's less intimidating, where they could still work out, but it's not that right equipment. So we really try to get a mixture of a little bit of everything in here. Right. So any kid could come in here. And I know, I was mentioning this before, that the band, we have an award-winning band. Yeah. We have one of the best, I'll say the best band in the state. Yeah. You know, maybe a little biased, but they've were phenomenal with the amount of awards that they win over the years. The band just started competing nationally now. Oh, wow. I guess this was our third year. Every year they competed, we got a little bit better, a little bit better. This year we took third place nationally on the East Coast, right? But still considered national competition. And they took first place in percussion.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know what I mean? So, and we want to, and believe me, I say, you know, even though I've been an athletic guy, I played basketball, baseball, football myself growing up. I used to be a power lifter. Yeah. You know, the hardest work, I get in trouble saying this, the hardest working group, I believe, is the band. Yeah. They are incredible. When you watch these kids, you know, practicing 3 times, like triples, like 3 times in the morning, at lunch, and that, the practice and the precision that they put together, and you could see it. You could see they deserve the recognition they get for all the hard work. So we need to build out a facility where they could come. Yeah, and because the conditioning is just as important for them.
And it's a different style. Right. Yeah, it's not the same as a football or baseball team, because they have to work on their breathing, because they're blowing into flutes and trumpets and all this stuff while walking or marching or moving or choreography and in frigid temperatures sometimes. You know? And they have to stay in time, which is like usually with sports. The time aspect is more like you let plays develop, and you can slow down, speed up, you can do it. But when you're locked in with however many people are in the band, a large number. But
I think we're going to be. I think in 2020 our band's going to peak out over 180 kids.
Oh my gosh! And to have to lock in. 180 people.
Yeah, and that's including all the band and color guard, the whole. But it's a huge. And when I got 10 years ago, there was I think it was 120 kids. You know, so again that's growing, and it's like you can't deny the kids, because. I got to be careful how you say this, but you don't want to deny the kids to be able to excel. You want to provide the best environment possible, but you need to be fiscally responsible. Exactly. Yeah. I'll challenge anybody over my 10 years on the school board that we've been extremely fiscally responsible. Because when I could sit there and show, our annual growth, when I got on the board, the annual growth was 9%. Expense growth. Okay. We've been able to get that, our annual expense growth, we got it cut down to, we got rid of all the wasteful spending. Yeah. We got our annual growth expense down between 3% and 4%. Paid off $200 million at a district debt. We're going to be, within 10 years, we're going to be completely debt free.
That's incredible.
So I could argue all day long why we're extremely fiscally responsible. But we also need to provide the best educational environment possible for our students, and they're succeeding. I mean, we got kids that are just succeeding here at Springford, no matter the direction they go. We got kids that go to trade school. I mean, in Western Center, that's a whole other thing we even talk about. So we got kids that graduate here going to trade school. They're succeeding. They're coming out of trade school and they're making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year out of school.
Trades are definitely under. There's jobs waiting for people, and it's like just you can do a trade and be immediately in.
There's a dire need for like welders and different machine. I mean, but then we have kids that excel academically. I mean, so we're doing something right, and we're not blowing money. I mean, people will always say, "Oh, I can't believe you wasted my tax dollar." We're not wasting tax dollars because when you have one of the top school districts in the state, you have one of the best real estate markets in the entire area, and you know that you're on a path to being fiscally, we are fiscally responsible. When you're on a path to be debt free, which you don't put those school district debt free together too often. So we're really thrilled with what we've been able to achieve here at Springford. And Joe moved on. I mean, he moved on to the state rep, and and he was able to take a lot of what we've done here, and he tries to bring it forward to the state. And him and I talk, and and there's things that one of the last thing I gotta say, I we'll probably run out of time, but one of the last things I gotta get in is 8 years ago we started to build what we call Springford Police Department. And it wasn't, we just did it. A lot of planning went into place, and how we grew and how we slowly adapted, and we moved into building out this police force. Look, the times we live in, they are what they are. And like anywhere else, you could put your head in the sand and say, or you do something. And within creating one of the best school environments possible, we have our own police force. We have, I guess we're up to 8 officers. We have a chief of police now. We have vehicles. We have great relationships with all the surrounding. There's 4 municipalities that make up Springford. There's Upper Providence, Limerick, Royersford, and Spring City. We have great working relationships with the police departments in each of those 4 areas, but we have what we call Springford Police. It is quickly being recognized as one of the top school police departments in the state of Pennsylvania. There's one other district that is at the level we're at. It's called a Butler School District out in Western Pennsylvania. There was a new bill that came out that actually took what do you want to call it, privileges away from what the police can and cannot do. This year, bill, I forget the number, 621 or something like that. It actually cut our knees out from underneath us as far as what we were trying to do. Well, I got on the phone, I started talking, I contacted Senator Mensch, I contacted Senator Regan, Senator Regan was the creator of the bill. I talked with them, I talked to the state legislature. So I got on this, and we're proud that we were part of the driving force to getting that bill changed, where our police department is back to being what we intended it to be, and our guys are our team. It's not we have both. Our team is a fully functioning police department.
That's incredible.
They do quarterly training. We do all of the training that municipality police do. We're doing. They have to do quarterly qualifying with their firearms. I mean, we are a full functioning police department. And we're very proud of that because our number one priority is our kids, our students, our staff, our teachers. You know what I mean? We need to make sure that they have a great environment, and we need to protect them. So we're very proud of and we, like I said, we hired Chief Boyer a year and a half ago. All the police that we have in place are either retired, they left the municipality, or Pennsylvania State Police. One of our recent hires was a lieutenant in Pennsylvania State Police. So we're bringing in very experienced, very knowledgeable, very qualified, police officers that, and the kids love them.
Oh, that's really good.
They love them. The elementary kids, when we have an officer walking into school, the elementary kids are like they're giving high fives.
That's awesome.
I mean the kids.
It's a great thing too to get kids used to the interaction, and and seeing that it's people working for safety of the community as a whole,
right?
As opposed to an us and them kind of mentality. It's great for them to see that on a daily basis.
Yeah, and Gwen, who's one of our longer officers, she was one of our. She was hired, I guess, in our second or third year as we were building this. As we were building this out. We have these what they call senior impact awards, where the seniors get to nominate a teacher that had an impact on them over their entire school year. And then we have like a big dinner, and the students recognize the teachers for their impact and all that. Yeah. It's really a cool event. Gwen, who was hired as a police officer, she was nominated 3 years in a row by students. That's the impact that she had on their life. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's how they're being so accepted into the school. And I hate to say stuff like this, but we also do work with our municipalities, and we do active shooter drills, and we do all the other things. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about that we're doing from a security standpoint, because we don't, for obvious
don't
reasons.
Want to telegraph things.
Right, exactly.
No, that's totally
so we do that, but it's just we wanted our police to be not unrecognizable, but when they're in the buildings, you want them to be part of the day-to-day environment. It's just I mean? It's not like one day, like all of a sudden there's cops in the school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're in the schools. We don't tell people. People don't know. You don't know what school they're in, when they're going to be there, how many are going to be in this school, how many are going to be. We don't disclose any of that. We keep that very quiet. But we have officers constantly throughout the entire school district, and in the schools, working and doing stuff or whatever it may be. Yeah. So we're really excited about that, and all that wrapped up is why Springford School District has become one of the top school districts, in the state. Yeah. I mean, we're really thrilled and very proud of, what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, for sure. You guys should be. I mean, it's great. I'm glad to have heard your story, and for those that are interested to get. Even more. I mean, we've heard so much, but we do have the episode in our archives with Joe Cerisi, so you can hear his perspective on the things that you guys were able to implement. As you had said, bipartisan, and that's it. In a recent episode, I sat down with Senator Katie Muth, and we talked about that. A lot of the national attention is on like the federal level,
right.
But the real change that can be implemented is by people in a community working together outside of partisan politics, and that's actually what directly affects you. Like your kids in the school, the local taxes, the local water, water, sewer, trash, all that kind of stuff. Those are the decisions that you can actually really affect change. And for people like yourself who are willing to take their free time, as it were, and sacrifice
we don't get paid.
To sacrifice that time to make your children's lives better. That's what makes, I think, the Springford area such an awesome place to be, because there are so many people that love this area and want it to be the best that it can be. So I thank you for your efforts. Pass my thanks on to the remaining board members, because, like I said, like when I mentioned the Springford, people get excited because they're either have lived there their whole lives and are proud to be a local, or they hear so much about it that they're becoming transplants like ourselves, because they want to be somewhere where they see the efforts being made to make the education better, to make the dollars spent wiser,
right?
Which is huge. It's important, and if we can affect that kind of change at the local level, then hopefully it'll start to move up nationally and that.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. I tell people all the time, the decisions that are made locally impact your lives. The stuff that you hear about in Washington, a lot of stuff that's decided there, and the things that you hear talked about, the trickle down, by the time it eventually gets to you personally, it means nothing. A good example is Springford School District gets less than 1% of funding for education from the federal government.
That's incredible, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
82% of our funding comes from the local tax base. So where's the decisions and how these decisions are impacting is huge. I mean, so you hit the nail right on the head. But I will have to say that people could go back and look at Joe's episode. But obviously this one's going to be better.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's for sure.
You
that
know,
was 2 years ago.
yeah,
The
he's,
changes that have happened since then are great.
Joe and we tease each other all the
That's
time.
good. Yeah, that's what I love about it, because it's like you said, there's people. You guys have worked, you've rolled up your sleeves together for 10 years plus, and now we see what he's doing and trying to implement the things that he was able to do here, like you had said, on the state level, as a representative. So, well, Tom, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, well,
really
thank you for,
yeah,
this is great.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Discover Springford. I want to thank you for watching, and I also want to thank Tom for his time today. In addition to that, I want to thank the Director of Facilities, Robert Hunter, for allowing us to do the interview on site and to get a peek at the new fitness center. If you'd like to know more about the Springford Area School District, you can visit the links below the video. If you'd like to know more about Discover Springford, you can visit our links, and you would do us a great favor by sharing this video with your friends and family. If you'd like to support us financially, you can do that in a number of ways. You can support us for as little as $1 a month on our Patreon site. You can also make a one-time contribution through PayPal, or you can buy some of our merchandise in our online store. Thanks again for watching. Come back next time as we discover more of what makes the Springford area a great place to live, work, eat, and explore.